Hi, everybody. So this is going to be really fun. This is our next episode of Chicks on Flicks, and we're going through Roger Ebert's 33 films that will restore your faith in humanity, and we are looking at The Band's Visit, and Christine is here to talk over this film.
Hey, everybody.
And this was one that I had never heard of before. So it's always kind of a fun experience to try something new and different. And like most films, I feel like I've at least sort of heard of them, or, I knew nothing. I'd never heard of it before. So that was fun. Try something new.
Yeah, totally. I had also never heard of it.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for this list because I think it's going to help me with some of my foreign films, which I need more of in my life for sure.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, this is an Israeli film that is the basic story is about an Egyptian band that is scheduled to perform in a town in Israel, and they end up getting sent to the wrong town in the middle of nowhere, and they have to try to make things work because there's no hotel in the town, and it's they end up meeting this woman named Dinah who owns this restaurant, and that's basically the story. It's a very simple movie. It's one of those sort of slice of life kind of movies, and so what was your sort of overall thoughts about the film?
I think at first I was floundering to find my footing with the movie. Right. I wasn't totally sure what I was in for because I knew literally nothing about it. And then as soon as I figured out it was slice of life, I was like, okay. And then I just kind of hung along for the ride and constantly wished that I was smarter. There was a lot here where I feel like if I had a greater grasp of the political context and the social context and the history that this movie was kind of playing on a smaller scale, I think I would have appreciated it even more. So I liked it a lot overall. I thought it was really good, but I think that I'm actually going to send a link to it, or not a link, but I'm going to ask my father-in-law if he'll watch it because he lived in Egypt for 7 years. And I think that he would really like this movie, and I kind of want to borrow his filter. So I'll have to update you on that.
That'd be really interesting to know. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was good. It was right in the middle for me. I wouldn't pick it as a film to restore my faith in humanity, but I can understand, I guess, why Roger would. He says in the book. He says, basically, so there's these two lead characters. There's Dinah, and there's the head of the band, who's kind of an older man named Tufig. I might be pronouncing names totally wrong in this, so please forgive me if I do. But anyway, and he likes the way that these two people kind of have their moment of connection with each other, and I think that's why it's the kind of movie that would restore a faith in humanity. That these two people from these totally different backgrounds can have this sort of moment together. He says that let's see. It says, in the morning, the band reassembles and leaves. The band's visit has not provided any of the narrative payoffs we might have expected, but it has provided something more valuable, an interlude involving two enemies, Arabs and Israelis, that show them both as only ordinary people with ordinary hopes, lives, and disappointments. It has also shown us two souls with rare beauty. So what do you think about that?
I think that it was a beautiful way of looking at it. I did pick up pretty early that this was, I wouldn't call it allegorical, but maybe applicable, maybe this kind of microcosm of these cultures. And I felt like one moment that really encapsulated that was when the band says, we don't have a whole lot of Israeli money. In other words, we don't have any money to pay for this food. They said, but we have Egyptian money. Will you accept Egyptian money? And I thought it was kind of this beautiful way of asking, will you accept our Egyptian-ness? You know, like it's kind of this moment where the money, the currency isn't any good in this, you know, other country. And so it's like, and they ask her to accept that, and she does. And I thought that was actually one of the highlights of the moment for me. That was when I thought, okay, this is really interesting. Something deeper is going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also liked the way that it showed sort of how media and music can sort of transcend these
yes.
barriers. You know, I really liked, there's a moment where she talks about how she used to love to watch Omar Sharif movies. And you're a big, you know, we loved Lawrence of Arabia, the two of us. I love Omar Sharif. I think he's great, great actor. And the interesting thing is she says that, oh, they don't play that anymore on Israeli TV. Mm-hmm. And I think that was sort of trying to say that, like, there was a moment where we did have more connections, but it's become more and more sort of polarized and ostracized. And I think that you can even see that now with things that it's like, I don't know, not to get too much into politics or anything, but like, I feel like you can see that now where there's like certain things that are like, this is conservative, this is liberal, this is, you know, it's like you can only appreciate things in your camp. You can only appreciate things in with that, like, fully align with your way of thinking and your way of viewing the world. And like for example, like you have these faith-based films, for example, that don't even try to appeal to anybody else but faith-based audiences. And there's some argument to be made for that. I get it. But whereas I think that in the past, like something, say, a Ten Commandments or Ben-Hur or things like that like there was more of an attempt to kind of let's share this perspective, but let's also try to make something that will reach a broader audience. And so, like, you had people from all these different perspectives all enjoying something from that one perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. I think that deserves some more thought too, because it's like, yeah, I mean, I think there's some more things to say about that, but I think that is a really interesting thought. Mm-hmm. For me, it reminded me so much of Morocco. I understand it's not the same country. It's not the same culture at all. But you have such a heavy Arab influence in Morocco. And some of the sets reminded me of it exactly. There are some parts of Morocco that are just absolutely beautiful and green, but there are others that are just these vast stretches of desert. And it's not even, you know, sandy dune-like deserts in all these places. A lot of it is just really flat and gray. And there were constantly streetlights. And this movie had that same thing. It had these beautiful streetlights that had been built as if there was going to be a city here, and there's not. So that kind of atmosphere, these buildings that were begun and then abandoned, or you could tell had once been beautiful and had been, you know, gone into disrepair or no one cared. That really, really resonated with my personal experiences just being in some of these Arab influenced countries, because there was a golden age, or there have been multiple golden ages throughout history.
Yeah, sure.
Where there was more money and more peace. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think of, I don't know, maybe it's wrong, but I think of Egypt and Morocco and some of those northern African countries as being a little bit more sort of modern than some of the, like, you know, than your Saudi Arabias or some of your other countries. Like I said, I know really nothing, so I could be wrong. But so I can, it seems like a connection that I could make. And I liked the fact that, you know, it's really interesting because when when you meet somebody, say even somebody from Saudi Arabia or whatever, like you have, or most people, unless you're a bad person, like you have an innate sort of connection with most people. Like I think that you meet on a one-on-one kind of person, unless they're mean or, you know, doing something awful or whatever. And as human beings, we have that response to the other, that we meet and we can have dinner, we can have, you know, we can break bread, as they sometimes say, and with people. But it's like things get so messy when we start thinking about when we start thinking of the group and kind of what the group stands for and what they symbolize and but if you just met, like, you know, 5 of them, 10 of them, then you might feel differently.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the more I think about this movie, the more I'm like, wow, okay, this is really smart. This is a smart movie, because not only do we have the microcosm of these few people meeting, but then we have these multiple microcosms as the band splits up to spend the night at other people's houses. But then you have this even smaller relationship of Tawfiq with his son that has killed himself. And once you hear that, you immediately know what is going on between Tawfiq and Khaled, where he, for instance, when everyone's splitting up, he's like, okay, Khaled is going with me because he doesn't want him to get up to any trouble. But then this night changes him so much that even when he sees Khaled and Dina, having sex, he doesn't do anything. He kind of just accepts the fact that he doesn't understand this, that these people have their own identities and their own world, and he's not the authority, which is what he said he missed with his son. He says, I just didn't understand him. I was too hard on him. He was so critical of him. And so it's like they take this, this greater story, and then they have a smaller story and a smaller story and a smaller story and a smaller story until you get to this little seed of a father and his son. That
was really heartbreaking, because there was a feeling of like, he realizes that he was wrong, but he is who he is, to a certain extent. Like there's a feeling that like, if he had to do it all over again, he probably wouldn't behave all that differently. And that makes him very sad because of course it would make you sad, but I don't know. That was an interesting character for sure. That and the how that experience of losing a son in that way, like as soon as he tells her that story, and you get a feeling that he hasn't told very many people that story, maybe even most of the other people in the band, that this is a very human moment for him to actually admit that, like, he just doesn't seem like the kind of character who's just like telling this to everybody he meets. And I don't know, there's just this idea that that as soon as she hears that, I feel like she understands what this experience is. And again, it's that other thing of like, where we can be sort of like Roger's saying, that we have these enemies, but when we actually talk to them and we hear their story, we connect with them and we feel for them and all of that. And so I don't know, it was really moving. And just there is something, obviously we can learn and grow, but there is something to the fact of like, also that we are who we are. And so I don't know, there's like it's just like both things are true. I think at the same time. And I think you kind of saw that with him, that he wanted to change. He wanted to be this completely different person that wouldn't have done that to his son, but he kind of can't.
Maybe, because I feel like we did see a change, which I was surprised at. I remember there was like 17 minutes left in the movie, and I was like, okay, we got 17 minutes to wrap this up. I have no idea how anybody's going to be able to like pick up this heavy melancholy. And, so I thought it was really interesting because I read, Roger Ebert's review after, where he said, you don't get any of the payout that you think you're going to get. But there is a change. There's a very very small change. Just the fact, because I mean, there were a couple moments that I expected, you know, when he says like what that payout would be, you know, it makes you think, okay, what was I expecting here? I was definitely expecting a moment where, you know, Tawfiq would realize that like Dina was a prostitute. It's really ambiguous whether or not she is, whether her relationship with Sammy was for fun or whether, to me, it came across as
interesting.
Her calling him a son of a bee like a couple times. I was like, I don't think this was for fun, but who knows? But I expected there to be like a blow up, like, oh, like we slept in your house, but there wasn't. And then, you know, when he sees Khalid and Dina together, I expected him to do something to make his presence known, and he didn't. And I thought both of these seem really different than the man he's describing that raised his son. So
yeah, I guess I can see that. Like maybe he's still that person, but he isn't expressing it. He isn't acting on it the way he used to. You definitely saw that in his face and in his he's still, you know, he's still the same. He still feels the same way. But maybe he has gotten some degree of sort of self-awareness that he didn't have before. So I can see that. Yeah, it's a really interesting, and I like the Roger Ebert. He says the band's visit begins with this premise of this thing, which could supply the makings of a light comedy, and it turns into a quiet, sympathetic film about loneliness that surrounds us all. I like that. I think that's interesting.
Spot on. The monologue by Itzik to the clarinetist Simon, to me that was the whole theme of the movie, you know, where he was like, maybe your concerto doesn't end with trumpets and brass, maybe your concerto just ends with a small room and a child sleeping and tons of loneliness. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was really good stuff. But I feel like I felt a little unsettled at the end that we didn't get anything more with Itzik and his wife, because I am just too optimistic to be like, and the meaning of life is to come to terms with that. I mean, I'm like, I can't settle there. I can't stay there. I don't feel like this was, I feel like it was a profound step in the journey, but I certainly do not accept that as the destination. But maybe I felt like maybe this movie was suggesting that absolutely this is the destination. It's just this acceptance of the grim reality of life and loneliness.
I don't know. I think it's one of those movies that's just about this moment in these people's lives, you know, that I don't think that it is saying it is. I think it's a very small, subtle movie about this one little moment that I wouldn't say that this has that kind of resolution or importance necessarily in I don't know, to me, but I can see what you're saying, that it's definitely a very subtle ending, that's for sure. You know, it's just a fly on the wall kind of a film that some people will think this movie is really boring. I'll just put it out there. This is the kind of movie that some people will really struggle with because it doesn't have a lot of plot. Not a lot happens here, but it's something that I liked. I mean, like I said, I didn't love it, but it's funny as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was really good, and that was good too, and that was good. So maybe I liked it more than I kind of gave it credit for. Who knows? But what did you think of the acting of all the sort of major actors?
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just really believable. To me, this really, like, as a traveler, frankly, this really felt familiar. There were, especially even at the beginning, when like they get off their bus and there's no one there to greet them and they're just making phone calls and trying to figure out where to go. I'm just like, oh, I'm feeling this like association of that. It's just, it happens all the time. You go to a foreign country and it's like, you can't really talk to anybody effectively, you know, like you don't have enough currency in their, you know, in their currency. It's just so like stressful. It is just frustrating. And the thing is most movies with these fish out of water in another country scenarios, it's kind of fun. It's like hijinks, you know, and you're kind of running around figuring things out, but that's not what it's like at all in real life. In real life, it's just the sound of your suitcase on a road that is not supposed to accommodate suitcases. And I thought that this movie just nailed that. I thought that was
because
so good.
Like I used to love to travel, and I become more like it's fun. I take the advantage when I have the opportunity, but like the traveling part of travel, I hate so much. Like all the getting there and trying to coordinate everything so yeah, this kind of a thing, like it's just so stressful and it's so awful. And I know it's very like wah, you get to travel, but like, whether it's flying or driving or whatever it is, it's awful. I hate that part of it. So yeah, I agree with you. It definitely captured that spirit of like stress and trying to like, it could have, a lot of things in this movie could have been a lot more of a sort of caricatures with sort of, I think these characters could have felt more like caricatures.
Oh, for sure.
Very easily. There could have been like sort of the dumb one and the smart one and the fat one and the, you know, like you see in sometimes these kind of movies.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first 10 or 15 minutes, I thought I was in for like a Wes Anderson film, you know, because there were all these wide shots, there was symmetry, the pastel colors. It reminded me of, what is it called? The Grand Budapest. It was nothing like it at all. But at the beginning, I thought a lot of the visuals really reminded me of that, but they kind of cooled it later. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I can see how it could have sort of gone that way, especially because I just saw the Darjeeling Limited by Wes Anderson, which is all about these brothers on this train in India. So I can really particularly see it that one. But yeah, I think that's true. And I really did like, I guess the name Sassoon, his name is Sassoon Gabai as Tufik. How do you say it? Tufik. Okay, sorry. Tufik. He was very good. I think he could have just been sort of a strict sort of jerk, you know, like you see in movies, let's say like Dead Poet Society or something like that, like the dad in that movie, those kinds of films. He could have just been like that, but he wasn't. There was sort of layers to him. I thought that he was really good in the role. And I also thought her name is Ronit Elskabetz is played Dinah, and I thought that she was really good. And so yeah, I mean, overall, I thought all the acting was strong. Yeah, and you got a feeling of from her that she was just so glad to have like someone else to talk to and someone else to bond with. And I can totally relate to that I don't know, sometimes when you know you meet somebody new and it's just like you're just so excited to like tell them about the different things in your life and just to hear their experiences in there. I've recently made a couple new friends in my life, and it's just been so sort of refreshing to like somebody who doesn't know me, like doesn't know any of my other friends, doesn't know anything, like isn't in my, you know, church group at all, isn't, you know, just it has no sort of other way of sort of judging me. And it is kind of fun to be like, oh, you like that and you do that, and you just to have someone else to talk to. Especially I grew up in a small town, and so I especially kind of, I feel like I understand that, you know, just like someone would come to visit and you're like that I felt like that sort of with her, just sort of this excitement of new people, you know, a little bit with her. And it is kind of ironic in a way that they are going to visit the Arab Cultural Center.
Yeah.
You know, when.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And her response is, there is no Arab culture. There's no Israeli culture.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no culture here. That I thought was very clever.
Definitely. Sure. All right. Well, it's interesting that this movie is being made into a Broadway musical it's already made, but it's going to be debuted this fall. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I feel like it should actually relate pretty well to a Broadway musical. I can see, I mean, it's about a band, so it's sort of, there's some easy spots I think you could put in songs. And I can see them making, doing interesting things with it.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to have to be a tone shift, though.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine any of the characters in this movie breaking out into song other than the few times they do, and it's this very, like, somber thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, there are a lot of somber musicals, but yeah, I agree that I think, and I'm sure that they will add story. That they will change it around and move it around. But I feel like there's potential there. It's an interesting choice. Yeah, so I'll be very curious to see how it goes. I guess the New York Times says, this is a place you want to visit if you're looking for signs of new and exciting life in the contemporary American musical. So, that's good.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very curious. I'd love to go see that.
So, yeah. All right. Well, so if you were to say, like, a 1 to 10, what rating would you give this film?
Well, I mean, rating it within the context of what it is and how well they achieved what they set out to do, I would give it an 8.
Yeah, me too. I'm on the same page. I'd give it an 8 also.
Yeah.
3. Okay. So next week we have a movie, another one I have never heard of and I know nothing about, which is fun. It's called Bang the Drum Slowly is what it's called. This is from 1973. It stars Robert De Niro. So that's always a good sign. So I have no idea. Like I said, it's a baseball movie. So that should be fun.
I feel like I'm getting educated. Come get educated with us, everybody. Come get educated.
Yeah, it's only 98 minutes, which is pretty short. But yeah, I literally know nothing about it except for the very first line of the review is "Bang the Drum is the ultimate baseball movie."
Wow,
so that's enticing. So that'll be fun. We will talk about that, and so if you're watching, let us know what you think of the band's visit. Give it a watch if you haven't seen it, and let us know what you think, and put it in the comment section. And we have started up a new Twitter account for this podcast, and it's Chicks on Flick, because I couldn't get the flicks. So follow us there on Twitter. I'll put a link down, and we'll try to post supplementary kind of articles and reviews and different things about the films that we're reviewing that week. And so it should be pretty fun trying something new there. And so yeah, this was a fun new experience. And so where can people find you?
They can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/ctylervision. That's CTYLER. Vision. And on Instagram, my family account is ctylerinsta, and my bookish account is ctylerbooks. So.
Great. Okay. I'll have links to that in the description section. And tomorrow, I have my podcast on the latest episode of Doctor Who. We were a little late on that this week. Just things work out sometimes. But anyway, so we'll look forward to that. And then on Saturday, it's going to be really fun. I've been doing over on my Twitter. we've been doing this superhero showdown, and we're actually going to do a sort of live version of the tournament where we go through the bracket with 3 of my fellow YouTubers. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that will happen on Saturday. And so, yeah, should be fun. Lots to look forward to. And you follow me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media, and 54 Disney Reviews on my blog. Just posted this morning late this morning, my review of Transformers 5. So you can enjoy that. And I should be getting my long blog review of Cars 3 coming up soon. I'm going to work on it some today. So that should be fun too. So lots of fun stuff going on. So thanks so much for joining me to talk about this.
Yeah, thank you.
This movie, this was a really fun new experience, a new film, like I said, that I never heard of. So. All right. We will talk next week.
All right. See you then.